Hey guys, it's Perry. Welcome to my patch 15.14 tier list. I'm going to highlight Metashifts, the current OP champions. Right now I have 5 of them, and we're going to talk about all the rest of the champions and why they belong in the current tier that they're in. Guys, my tier lists are meant to be for Iron to Diamond players. If you want to play champions that are really easy, straightforward, and not mechanically intensive, that's what I focus on so you can get LP as fast as humanly possible. Alright guys, let's jump into our first topic, which is going to be Metashifts. Hey, I'm Perry Jungle, former pro player for Dignitas, rank 2 in North America, and rank 33 on the Korean ladder. I've helped hundreds of students climb faster, play smarter, and finally understand how to win in the jungle. I have created a new program called the Jungle Kingdom, in which you get daily group coaching sessions, in-depth VOD reviews, and a personalized improvement tracker built to level up your game every single day. Whether you're stuck in gold or aiming for a higher elo, there's a seat waiting for you in the Jungle Kingdom. Make sure to join as soon as possible before prices increase. I'll see you guys in the Jungle Kingdom. Alright guys, let's talk about the current meta right now. Guys, it's the same thing as last patch. We are in the bruiser meta. We are in the terrain of tanks, bruisers. There's not much that has really changed. Briar got buffed, Lee Sin got nerfed. Some items did get changed, like Blade of the Ruined King and Kraken. But ultimately, we're going to be pretty much in the same state. Kraken and Blade buffs weren't so big to where tanks are now gonna die just to random stuff, or bruisers are gonna die. It's gonna help them be more popular, but I definitely don't think it's gonna shift anything. We're gonna be looking at the same bruiser champions. Unless Riot changes something drastic in the current meta, AP items get buffed, AP champions get buffed, or something really big changes, ultimately we're just going to see bruisers be at the top because fighter champions are OP. If you're a champion, you can build longswords, you can build kindle gems, you can build ruby crystals, tunnelers. You're going to be really powerful on this patch. Alright guys, let's jump into the actual top 5 S tier champions. So in the S tier, these champions are all going to be really straightforward champions. They're not going to be mechanically intensive. They're going to be really straightforward. And the key thing is they are big stat checkers that absolutely dominate in team fights, in 1v1s and 2v2s. At all points of the game, as long as you're not behind the curve, you are going to outpower the enemies. And the big thing is the execution is not that difficult. That's what I really care about, having easy champions, because if you're lower elo, you want the easiest champion to play so you can focus on other things that are happening in the game. Alright, our first champion on the list here is going to be Briar. So Briar has been a champion that's almost always one of the most broken stat checkers in the game, and right now she recently got buffed, so she's going to be even more powerful on the Rift. This champion, the only difficulty is the control of understanding your W, your E, and your Q. You're going to need to play a little bit more games on Briar because the champion just requires a little bit more knowledge, but overall, after you understand how to keep yourself alive, the champion is really straightforward, really easy for you to just stomp games. Just be careful, don't lose control of your character and kill yourself. Our next champion here is going to be the Mummy King. We have Amumu. Always this champion is S tier, S plus tier, at least A tier. This champion is the teamfight master. He's the objective control master. There is really nothing this champion lacks except for dueling, 1v1s. That's really the only thing the champion is not great at, is 1v1ing people or getting invaded. Otherwise, if you use your ulti correctly, you're farming optimally, this champion is absolutely just insanely broken. I always recommend Amumu. You saw Ludwig, he had platinum with Amumu. Amumu is the king of the jungle, especially if you're a newer player coming into the game. Yes, he is very boring though. Our next S tier champion here is going to be the Storm himself. We have Volibear, another OP stat checker. This champion does the exact same thing as Briar, but you have a little bit more control of your character and you have a lot more options. You can do a lot of different things on this champion, but ultimately you're a stat checker and you're just going to be really powerful in fights. The problem is, although he's easy and although he has really good objective control, really good team fighting, if you use your E and you send it on the wrong guy or you W the wrong guy, you will absolutely look like a dog on this champion. So really what I recommend, if you love Volibear, go watch me play Volibear or some higher elo player play Volibear and understand how they're using their spells. Watch them and really dissect. Okay, he's using his Q here. Oh, he's preparing his E here. Awesome. That's how he's using his spells. That's what you guys need to do on Volibear. This champion is really powerful, though. I highly recommend Volibear. I love this champion. The next champion we have here is the Troll King. So we have the Storm, Briar, we have Amumu. All of these people are just really good stat checkers and very strong. Trundle comes into the meta whenever bruisers and tanks become relevant, because Trundle beats the shit out of them. Trundle beats Volibear, Trundle beats Briar, Trundle beats Amumu. Trundle literally just 1v9s games where there are a lot of strong tanky champions. You can go Trinity Force into Deadman, Spear Visage, very classic. Or you can go Trinity Force into damage, into a Sterax, into a Wit's End. I mean, you don't want to overdo it. You still want to have survivability, but you can go Titanic Hydra, Triforce, so many different items where you're 1v9 and carrying the game. Also extremely tanky. A little trick on Trundle is you put 3 points into your Q, and then you max your W, and then you finish off with your Q. A lot of pros in MSI were doing this, and overall it's really nice because your W gives you so much move speed and attack speed. It's very, very strong, especially if you are putting yourself in dangerous positions where you need to survive. Our last and final champ in the S tier is going to be Nocturne. I'm trying to find where Nocturne is. Okay, there he is. So, Nocturne is one of the most broken champions because of his ulti usage, the way he can play the map. I think a big problem about Nocturne is people don't understand that you need to collect information to get good ultimates. A lot of people just think that kills come easily, and it's not true. You need to sift for information around the map in order to figure out how to get kills with Nocturne. So you're not going to get freebies unless you search for them. So I'll coach Nocturne players in the Jungle Kingdom, coach them one-on-one, I'll coach them wherever, and they're not looking at things on the map that I'm looking at. So when I live coach them, I have to yell at them, hold tab, look at these lanes, look at this, look at that, and they're like, wow. It's an eye-opener because they're actually getting information and they're finding picks. Second thing on Nocturne, just for you guys to know, make sure you land your E. It's the most important thing to land. If you ult someone, don't worry about auto-attacking. Make sure you E, you run into them, you block with their escape path, and then fear them backwards towards your team. And make sure that's the most important thing on this champion. Alright, jumping into the A tier here, we have these sets of champions that are overall stat checkers, overall really strong, and overall have decent playability. They're not too difficult, but they're definitely not as superior as all these champs in the S tier in terms of how much LP you can print with all those S tier champions. If you want to lock in on a champion, you play this S tier champions, but the A tiers are actually fine to play as well. It's just if you have a choice, S tier will always be favored. So the first champion in the A tier here is going to be Diana. Now this champion might seem a little fishy because she's not really a bruiser, but the thing is Diana can build in two ways. You can either build full AP Diana, or you can build a bruiser-ish version of Diana where you go Nashor's Riftmaker, and then you can go Bloodletter's Curse, or you can even buy Liandry's, even though it's not a great item. You can go Liandry's, Riftmaker, Bloodletter's, different type of builds on Diana depending on the game state. So pretty much if you're playing against full squishy comp, go Nashor's into Rabadons. You can build Shadowflame, maybe Zhonya's to survive, just full damage. And then if you're playing against bruiser champions, you can actually do the Liandry's, the Riftmaker, the Bloodletter's Curse, and you're extremely tanky, and you can survive. I recently did a video on both of these Diana builds, so I highly recommend you take a look at that. Jarvan, the Demacian King. This champion is one of my favorite champions, and it's my personal champ I hit rank 2 on. And to this day, we're seeing Gurren play it a lot in Challenger, trying to push for rank 1 in NA. He is a menace on Jarvan, and honestly, this champion is very broken. The problem with this champion is not his stats, and it's not his team fight, it's not his bruiser ability. He's actually one of the craziest stat checkers in the game. It's how you fight and how difficult he really is. Champion like Volibear is the same thing, it's very difficult, but it's a lot easier to drool all over your keyboard on Volibear than it is on Jarvan. You have to be very tactical with how you place your flags, how you use your ultimate, how you use your flash. There's a lot of tactical strategy behind Jarvan. But in terms of stat checking and making sure you land spells, your R is really easy to land. Your EQ, the hitbox is kind of like stupid sometimes. Champion is overall very, very, very powerful. The guys, if you want to lock in on a champion, Jarvan is a great one. It's just you're going to struggle with some mechanical understanding, and that's okay. The next champion in the A tier is going to be this champion right here. We have Jax. Now, Jax is kind of an unusual champion to be here, but the logic really makes sense if you think about it. You're seeing a lot of these S tier champions, and so far these A tier champions, Jax does really good against majority of these. I mean, against literally all of them right now, I feel very happy playing Jax into. The problem with Jax is you can't really blind the champion. So if the enemies pick any of the champions you see right now, Briar, Amumu, Volibear, Trundle, Nocturne, Diana, Jarvan, you're happy to pick Jax into that, but if you're first picking Jax, they can pick a bunch of champions that absolutely screw you over. The thing is, Jax really is a strong champion if the enemy composition is something you're happy to play into. So, if there are 3 champions that are auto attackers, or 80 champions, you're very happy on Jax. But let's say they have a bunch of AP champions, they have a bunch of range, and you're unable to jump onto the enemies. Let's say they have a Rumble, they have like a mage mid. It's going to be really miserable for you to play Jax. So you just have to be careful. Do not blind pick this champion, please. But his counter strike is broken. His stat checking is also really, really strong. The next champion we have here is Mr. Mundo. It's Aloysius' special champion right now. I don't know if he gave up on the Mundo jungle grind, but the thing is, Mundo jungle is not that exciting until you get your first, maybe even second item. Literally all you do is you full clear camps as fast as you can. It's pretty much just like Karthus. You're pretty much playing a version of Karthus, but instead of doing a shit ton of damage later on in the game, you are extremely tanky later on in the game. So Mundo is like, okay, you're gonna be tanky, you're gonna do a lot of damage as well, as long as you know how to use your Heartsteel, you know how to use your E. But overall, this champion is just like a little bit underwhelming with the early game pressure, and the fact that he's just a true tank. The good thing, though, is there aren't many champions in the game that can handle tanks at the moment. So if you want to play a pure scaling champion, be a tank, I recommend Mundo. Is completely fine to play. The catch with Mundo is the same thing with Jax. If you pick this champion too early, they can pick champions like Vayne, even like a Kale Top for scaling, just different versions of tank killers that absolutely shit on this champion. So do not pick the champion early. It's the same thing with Jax. Picking the champ too early is disastrous for your game. Fiddlesticks is the next 80 tier champion that we have. If you use your ultimate correctly in any fight and you're sneaky, you get that super 3-4 5-man fear, you will absolutely 1v9 the game, and you'll probably just win it from there. Especially if you get the second ult, the third ult, the fourth ult. Fiddlesticks is truly a OTP champion. If you don't OTP the champion, you're probably going to struggle on Fiddlesticks. If you master the champion, you'll be really threatening, you'll be very powerful. But here's the thing, why would you play Fiddlesticks when you can play a champion like Amumu? You don't have to one trick as hard, you don't have to learn all these angles, you don't have to learn all these things. You can just go in head first, full combo someone, and then kill them, and then win the game. Fiddlesticks, you have to be so sneaky, you have to like be really creative, you have to be really thoughtful. It's like all the rest of the champions, it's like bash your head into the monitor and your keyboard, and you'll win. So that's the reason why like Fiddlesticks isn't that amazing, just simply because of energy and time that you need to invest. In terms of pure strength though, Fiddlesticks is like, he's literally off the tier list. Fiddlesticks is very powerful. Alright guys, our next 8 tier champion is going to be Kayn, one of my other favorite champions. I hit Challenger with Kayn when I first played League of Legends. This was my favorite champion because he has 2 options. You can either go the red form of Kayn or the blue form of Kayn, and right now, given the meta, how there's bruisers every like single game, you can go red Kayn and you actually get a lot of value. But at the same time, let's say they pick 3, 4, 5 range champions, you can also go Shadow Kayn. You just have a lot of adaptability to different situations in the game. And what's really nice about Kayn is right now there's a lot of tanks in the game, and Kayn has a lot of survivability. He's not as broken as he was before with the Gore Drinker being a thing on red Kayn, but he's still very, very, very powerful. Guys, if you want a OTP champion that's like really 1v9 and you really want to absolutely stomp games, Kayn is one of those champions because you have so many options. Alright guys, our next champion is going to be Kindred. Now Kindred is one of the most broken champions in the game if you can play her well mechanically. She has a good clear speed, she's good at fighting, she scales really well, the items she builds is really, really nice. The problem is if you're not good mechanically on Kindred, you won't find too much success on her. So you absolutely need to make sure that you are fighting properly. Now the thing about Kindred is Kindred's really good into like Trundle, into Volibear, into, you know, just like Jarvan's okay, Mundo. A lot of these champions Kindred actually like excels into, but the thing is there are some champions that just completely shut her down as well. Like let's say the Amumu, you get a massive lead, but you're playing a team fight, Amumu full combos you, one-shots you. You do have some problems on Kindred, and again, it comes down to your fighting, it comes down to your mechanics. Next in the A tier, we have Mr. Warwick, Vander himself. This champion is very, very, very strong at stat checking. The 1v1 is insane, but the problem with Warwick is his team fighting overall in the game is not as powerful as, let's say Volibear, let's say Trundle, even Nocturne or Amumu, but Warwick can beat the Trundle in a 1v1, or can beat the Volibear in a 1v1. The problem is just team fighting overall later on in the game. You can probably snowball harder on Warwick because of how many kills you're able to get. You just kill here, kill there, kill here, because of your W move speed. But again, it's the team fighting. So guys, if you want to get better at Warwick, I'd highly recommend watch the OTPs who team fight on Warwick, because there are some actually really good ways to play team fights with Warwick. It's just you need to study that. So that's what you need to focus on this champion. Viego, the Ruined King himself. I absolutely love this champion. Kraken Slayer has been buffed and Bork has been buffed. He's still an A tier champion. He's not going to be S tier because right now he won't win the 1v1 against, let's say, a Volibear or a Trundle. Even in team fights, like you get the Amumu ult on you or the Briar jumps you, like you're going to struggle winning those team fights. Now you do have the option to go Kraken Slayer now. You can go Kraken to Collector into full damage, but the Triforce really helps the survivability, and you're dealing a good amount of damage too. I'd only do Kraken into full damage if you have the composition for it. So let's say you have a tanky support, tanky top laner who can engage for you, then sure, let's go Kraken Slayer into full damage because you have your teammates facilitating for you. If not, then you want to go Triforce into potentially Crit or even Bruiser. Viego is an adaptable champion depending on the comp, but you always can 1v9 fights if you get a reset. The problem is, guys, he's a bit team reliant, especially in solo queue. If you blind Viego, you get Enchanter support, you get AP top lane who's playing Cannon or something, like it's like a really weak top laner, no engage, or like a bruiser like Darius or something. Like you're gonna struggle in this champion because no one can start the fights for you. So as long as you have someone to start the fights for you on Viego, you'll be a lot happier on this champion. Next, we have the Dragon Queen herself, Shyvana, another one of my champions that I highly recommend for lower elo players, especially if you're iron to gold. This champion is probably one of my best recommendations if you don't want to play Amumu. The problem with Shyvana is, although she's a really broken stat checker, she deals so much damage, she farms extremely quickly, she's very, very, very weak in the early game, way weaker than a champion like Amumu as well. Like, you have to give up everything. Even towards the mid game, you're giving up a lot of things too. So if you're not willing to give things up on Shyvana, this champion's not for you. But if you are and you want to be tactical and you're able to see the bigger picture, you're able to see how you can 1v9 the entire game, then Shyvana is actually very, very, very broken. Next, we have the Monkey King. There's a lot of kings and queens in this tier list. It's all the champions of the jungle. Wukong is actually one of the most broken junglers if you can play him well mechanically. So same thing with Kindred. That's obviously why Wukong is an A tier. His AoE with his ultimate is insane. The knockups, the damage. You can do triple Q, QR, EQR, and another Q at the end. It's a really powerful combo on Wukong. And the thing is, you go Triforce into Black Cleaver. Most of the time, you don't really want Sundered Sky. Black Cleaver actually gives you more value because of your Q armor shred, the Black Cleaver armor shred. It's actually such insane value with how much armor shred that is. And honestly, guys, if you can play Wukong mechanically well, this is even like an S tier champion. You get base armor. The only problem with Wukong is you're extremely ulti reliant and you can't win many 1v1s in the early game. So you're playing to sort of get level 6, and that's all you can do. Versus Trundle can just like run at you level 3, do whatever the hell he wants, and most of the time he'll win the fight as long as he's not doing something too stupid. Next, we have Xin Zhao. This champion really fits the boat of stat checking, good fighting, good 2v2, good 3v3, decent at literally everything, ganking, pretty much all around overall pretty strong. The problem with Xin Zhao is he's not as much of a hyper carry, and he doesn't have that much of a efficient clear speed / movement around the map. Think about Volibear, think about Trundle. They actually travel the map so quickly because of their extra move speed. So honestly, this champion is just strong enough to where he's A tier, but truly it's very difficult to 1v9 games on this Xin Zhao champion. You need to have a bit of a team to be relevant, but at the very least with your ultimates, you'll always be useful. You can go and start fights, use your R, never die because you have your ult, around yourself, reflecting all the damage. So overall, this champion deserves to be an A tier. The next champion is going to be Nunu, which we are actually bringing from C tier to A tier from the last tier list. Now, Nunu is a champion which I previously stressed that you want to OTP, and it's not really following the fundamentals that I teach. But here's the thing, guys. Amumu's objective control is really powerful And if you're playing for yourself in a sort of way where you're not just ganking dumb lanes over and over and over again, you're actually very powerful on Nunu. So you're not aiming for that 8 CS per minute, 8.5. You're aiming for like a 7. But what happens is some Nunu players just go for like 5 CS per minute. They gank, and they're not actually looking to play for themselves, to get strong, to get Liandry's into full tank. If you are really smart about the way you're playing Nunu, in terms of how you're farming, in terms of how many objectives you're getting, then this champion is actually very powerful and relatively straightforward. The only catch to this champion is the mid-late game. You kind of fall off in a sense where you're just like a tank, truth be told. But you can deal a lot of damage with the Liandry's. You could be really providing a lot of value. Here's the thing with Nunu, same thing with Nocturne. You need to have insanely good map awareness so you can find those picks, so you can find those kills. You need to be aware of what wave states look like and how to actually gank lanes using waves. The next champion here is going to be a completely big meme. We have Mordekaiser in the A tier. At some point we put him S tier, what the hell? And then we brought him to C tier, now he's back to A tier. Mordekaiser is very broken if you're anywhere from iron to silver. So similar to Shyvana, sort of like, hey, if you're a lower rank, this champion is very, very, very strong. But the higher rank you get, the lower value the champion actually is. You can take literally any 1v1 in the game and you'll absolutely stomp people without a doubt, without a question, because you have your ultimates and your champion is literally meant to win 1v1 in the death realm. You go your damage items and you just absolutely crush people. The problem is if you don't have ultimates and you're not really farming well, you won't be that relevant. So farm your camps, play off your ultimates, and this champion actually is a really strong pick if you're in the lower elos. The next and last champion for the A tier is going to be Lillia. Now, Lillia is a really solid champion. She used to be in B tier, but I'm bringing her back to A tier simply because of her ability to kite out all of the S tier champions. I mean, pretty much all of them. Maybe not necessarily Amumu, because Amumu can just CC lock her, but all of the A tier champions as well, at least the majority of them, Lillia actually excels in how fast she clears because of her move speed, her clear speed, and she also has just a lot of value in that fight. She didn't necessarily get buffed, her items, her kit, any of that, but her simple ability to kite, if you can play mechanically well, is actually a lot higher value than I previously thought. That's why she deserves the last slot in the A tier. The next category we have is the B tier. Now, in the B tier, these champions are simply just not as good as S and A tier champions. There's just better things to choose from. A and S tier are probably where I would recommend to play. Here's the thing with B tier champions. You're going to have maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 3 things that are big issues. That was like, okay, you pick the champion, you're going to have massive, massive issues. Or what's going to happen is you're going to really struggle to pilot the champion because either it's too hard mechanically or like just the structure behind the champion is just too difficult to truly understand. That's why they're B tier. The first champion in the B tier that is really important to mention is Gwen. She almost deserves to be A tier, but the catch with Gwen is although you're a tank killer, and although you win almost every single 1v1 when you have your ultimates, your early game is simply just too weak. Compared to Shyvana's early game, her early game is still really weak, both of their champions, but the thing is Gwen takes a lot longer to become online. You need your items way more than Shyvana, and you need your ultimate way more than Shyvana. Shyvana's ulti is also significantly shorter of a cooldown than Gwen. And here's the thing, guys, if you fight without your ulti on Gwen, you'll realize, holy shit, this champion actually sucks. Our next B tier champion is going to be Karthus. Now, this champion always fluctuates depending on the meta, and overall, this champion will always be relevant with his ultimate and his high DPS in most cases and how fast he farms. But the problem is, right now, the AP items are pretty nerfed, and the tanks in the game, you look at all the S tier champions and A tier champions, you're like, wow, these guys are really tanky even for Karthus to kill. And Karthus doesn't have the greatest items to kill the S and A tier champions at the moment. But in terms of power farming and in terms of dealing damage, Karthus is still very, very, very strong. Our next champion is going to be the Blob Man, Zac. Zac is one of the strongest champions in the game. Arguably like a Z tier champion if you're a one trick and if you can truly pilot Zac. If I'm telling you Wukong's hard to pilot, Kindred's hard to pilot, Zac is extremely hard to pilot. You need to know your angles where you're queuing minions, you're queuing enemies, you're flashing in. You need to understand how you use your E in fights, who you're going on, who you're ulting. It can look really easy when you're playing Zac, but when you truly play the champion, you'll understand, wow, we're very strong, but there are so many ways to play fights, and you need to be really precise with every decision you make in order to make this champion really broken. Our next champion here is going to be Pantheon. Pantheon is actually pretty strong overall, especially his early game, especially his damage in general. People don't expect to get blown up by this champion. This champion is actually very powerful in terms of how much damage you deal. The problem with Pantheon is the fact that his team fighting is pretty awful, and he's a very one-dimensional champion. You obviously know what a Pantheon is going to do in a fight. He's going to come running at you or W you, or he's going to ult at you and then maybe just get himself killed because he's ulting into 5 people. So the way Pantheon plays is too one-dimensional. It's really easy to play into, and the catch is that it's hard to teamfight properly on Pantheon. A lot of people think it's really easy, but actually this champion requires a good understanding of how to teamfight. Next B tier champion is going to be Evelynn. Evelynn will never be a really D tier champion, C tier champion, simply because of her passive and the fact that it's solo queue. You're always going to get some picks here or there, and you're always going to be able to snowball that way. But the catch with Evelynn is that she's a high risk, high reward type of playstyle. So if you make big mistakes, you will get punished super hard, and it's very difficult to stay consistent on a champion like Evelynn. Our next champion we have here is going to be Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is actually just a bit weaker than every other champion in the game because he's simply an assassin, and he only has the option of really being an assassin. There's no amazing bruiser build on Kha'Zix right now. So against stat checkers overall, he struggles with, he can kite, he can outplay, you can deal a lot of work on this champion. But overall, if you're playing an assassin in this meta right now, you're not that happy, especially when you get later in the game, and you're not really snowballing that quickly. They're going to get tankier than you, they're going to be able to still do enough damage to one-shot you, and then you're going to be miserable on an assassin. Our next B tier champion is going to be Hecarim. Now, Hecarim does it all. He ganks well, he fights well, he farms well, he travels the map well. The catch with Hecarim is you need to play really precisely in team fights, in any skirmish, and any interaction with the enemies, you need to play well. And a lot of people don't actually understand how to play Hecarim, myself included. I'm kind of an intern on Hecarim. It's very difficult to truly understand how to mechanically fight on Hecarim. So that's the real catch with this champion, is I've seen hundreds of Hecarim players play, and it looks nothing like what a challenger player would play on Hecarim, or at least an OTP, a true OTP who understands how to fight. It looks drastically different. So that's why Hecarim is not like an S tier champion, even though he does it all, because of how difficult it is to pilot and fight on the champion. Our next champion that's sort of in the middle of the pack here, he's not the worst but not the best. Honestly, he's a counter pick. We have Rammus. If they pick a lot of AD champions, and they're going something like Viego early in the draft, or they're going even like a Trundle, like Nocturne, all these champions that are true AD champions, Briar included, you can pick Rammus because you will just stomp the enemies and be a really annoying tank. But if they start picking a bunch of AP champions and you're blinding Rammus early, well, then yeah, you're going to want to FF. It's going to be miserable. Our next B tier champion is going to be Zyra. At some point, Zyra was an S+ tier champion, and she truly really is. But the problem after seeing lower elo players play this champion is it's really difficult to understand that playing for chunks, playing for poke, playing for small wins, it's just not a thing lower elo players do, which is why you play the bruisers, you play the smash your head into the monitor and just try to kill the enemies. Those are the better play styles for lower tier players. But if you want a really strategic range champion that clears the fastest out of any champion in the game, Zyra is your best friend. You literally deal 3,000 to 4,000 plus damage in teamfights randomly, as long as you're properly using your plants and spells. Our next champion is going to be Master Yi. This champion is middle of the pack, but can be pushed to A tier or even pushed down to D tier. Here's the thing, if you know how to use your Q to dodge spells, and you're aware of what's coming at you, you will push this champion to A tier. On top of that, if you can properly use your W to animation cancel or reduce damage, you can bring this champion to even like the top of A tier, maybe S tier. But if you're unable to do those things, immediately a D tier champion. And I don't mean every now and then you get a really cool play or you dodge something, it's really, really awesome. You're doing that every single game, every single fight, and you're really consistent on the champion. Overall though, if you're really low rank, iron, probably up to gold, plat, even emerald, Master Yi is a pretty good noob stomper because enemies don't really know how to use their spells properly either, so they won't lock you down, they won't shit on you as well as they could in higher elos. Now we have the C tier champions. Guys, for the C tier champions, you're either going to be a one trick in this category, you're going to be struggling if you pick up a champion here, or you simply just will have, it's like not good in the meta. It's just like not good into everything else that's above them. Our first champion here is going to be Ekko. Ekko is a really straightforward champion. You need 2 to 3 items to be able to snowball the game. You need early game kills. If you can't get that, you're weak as hell on Ekko. Really good if you're an OTP though. Next we have Naafiri, which Naafiri is technically a B or A tier champion in terms of how fast she clears and how strong she is overall, but the problem is she's way too hard mechanically for 99% of the population, so therefore Naafiri is C. Next we have Elise here. Elise is really powerful in terms of how much damage she deals, her early game threat, her dive threat, her invade threat. The problem is her team fighting and how precise you need to be later on in the game. You need a lot of practice on this champion, and on top of that, you need to learn how to be really sneaky and creative. If you can't, this champion is going to be even like a D tier champion. Next champion we have here is Poppy. Poppy is really good into countering some enemies. If you go the Umbral Glaive into Iceborne build that I talked about, this champion actually isn't that bad. But the problem with Poppy is if you don't one-trick the champion or understand the limits to Poppy, you won't be climbing or playing well in this champion at all. You need to learn your E angles, your ulti angles, how you can use your ult in different ways. It really takes a bit of time to invest in Poppy. The next champion we have here is Reksai. Reksai is like the AD version of Elise. He falls up really hard, but he can snowball in the early game. You're just not that threatening in the mid-late game fights, but in the early game, you're very threatening. The next champion we have here is Rengar. Rengar, this champion is just really, really, really hard to play mechanically. On top of that, you kind of get shit on by all the S tier champions, all these bruisers, and all this high CC. You get shit on pretty hard. And on top of that, all the A tier tanks, even some B tier tanks, you get shit on playing Rengar. You're just a true assassin, and you really need too much skill to play this champion for it to be worth it. The next champion in the C tier is actually going to be Vi. It's quite sad to me. This champion was really broken for a long time, but now she got nerfed time after time after time again, multiple patches in a row, so Vi is just getting bumped all the way down to C tier. Our next champion is going to be Shaco. I actually played him recently, and I understood the strengths and weaknesses of this champion after giving it a shot. That video is actually going to be on my third channel, which will be in the description box down below. Shaco is really just a one-trick champion. If you're not one-tricking Shaco, you really won't have a good time on the champion. Plus, your mid-late game fights just suck. You're a one-trick champ, you're an assassin. It kind of sucks on Shaco overall. Our next and final champion in the C tier is going to be Taliyah. Now, Taliyah is arguably a B tier champion or maybe an A tier champion, but you need to pick Taliyah into good comps if you really want to make her work. On top of that, you need to have a really high skill level of like understanding how to survive fights, how to use your spells, how to combo your CC. And the worst thing about Taliyah though, guys, is you need a lot of items and gold to really function. So it's like really difficult to do that because you're playing Taliyah at the end of the day in the jungle. Alright, and now we have the D tier here. All these champions are pretty much going to go into the D tier. These are all champions that are just simply too weak overall to be placed into the S, A, B, or C, or D tier, and we'll just run down these champions really quickly and overall understand why they all belong here. So pretty much either they're really good in specific scenarios. Let's say you're playing Ivern with a bruiser top, bruiser mid, hyper carry ADC, and it's like you have an engaged support as well. If it's like a perfect composition, these champions have some playability. Same thing with Olaf. Same thing with like even Skarner, the Sejuani, let's say Graves as well, Brand. All these champions, they require so much from your teammates. They have to play well as well for your champion to be useful. And if they don't do that, it really sucks. These champions are just not really in the meta right now. And if you really want to make them work, you have to be an OTP. And again, I'm emphasizing from Iron all the way up to Diamond. So anything higher, if you're thinking that way, we're not putting these champions there for that reason. Nidalee doesn't go there for that reason. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, guys, why champions are in the D tier. Lee Sin also got Omega nerfed. In fact, we can probably just make another tier for the Lee Sin here down below to literally say, Shadowrun. Like this champion Lee Sin right here got nerfed so hard. He lost 3 AD in the early game. One of the biggest reasons why he's strong in the early game. It's how much AD he had, and he's just like in the gutters now. So Lee Sin doesn't even deserve to be here. He's in a different world, a different universe. Alright guys, that's gonna be the tier list, but real quick, I want you guys to understand that no matter what happens on this tier list, what I say, what other people say, you should play the champion that you have the most fun with and you truly love. Because what's gonna happen is if you burn out too quickly because you're playing champion you don't enjoy, you won't get the marginal gains that you truly want. If you really love the game because you want to play a really specific champion, honestly, you can love the game for that reason. Will it be more difficult to climb? Sure. But if you won't play the game because you're playing boring Nocturne or boring Amumu, then it's not worth it to sacrifice your game time, playing the game, enjoying the game, just for a little bit of LP. To each their own at the end of the day, but don't let this persuade you to just make dumb choices that you don't agree with. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.